The day my own son threw me out of the house I spent decades building, I realized I wasn't just losing a home, I was losing my dignity, my family, and the life I thought I deserved. But what they didn't know is that a 70-year-old woman can fight back. And when I uncovered their lies, their fake pregnancies, and the money they stole, it almost broke me, before it made me unstoppable. If you want to see how I fought back, uncovered every lie, and finally reclaimed my life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what happens next. It's shocking, emotional, and completely unforgettable. The day my son threw me out of my own house, I stopped being a mother and started becoming a fighter. I can still see it, Texas sunlight spilling through that kitchen window, bouncing off the yellow tiles I'd laid myself 40 years ago. Back then, life felt steady, warm, simple. My husband, Frank, used to hum while fixing coffee, and I'd pretend not to notice how badly he sang. We built this place with laughter, calloused hands, and every paycheck we ever earned. After he passed, the house grew quiet, too quiet. Some nights I'd talk to his photograph, whispering, "You'd better be keeping a seat warm for me up there." The cicadas outside would buzz like a chorus of old memories. When my son Michael and his wife Tanya offered to stay for a while to keep me company, I felt relief. Family, I thought, that's what Frank would have wanted. Tanya called me Mom, brought me sweet tea, smiled that gentle smile that never quite touched her eyes. I didn't see the shadow behind it then. Weeks turned into months, months into years. I started noticing small changes, my favorite china missing, Michael handling the bills without asking, Tanya redecorating like she owned the place. Still, I told myself it was fine. They were young and I was tired of fighting time. Then came the day of my sister's funeral in El Paso. Losing her hollowed me out. I came home still wearing my black dress, clutching tissues that smelled like lavender, only to find my life scattered across my front yard. My clothes, my books, even Frank's fishing rods, all lying in the dirt like garbage. I froze on the porch. The air was thick with heat and disbelief. The lock on the front door gleamed new, the old one gone. Michael stepped out, avoiding my eyes, voice tight. "Mom, Tanya's pregnant, we need space. You can use the utility room till we figure something out." Pregnant, my mind spun. "Michael, this is my home." "It was," Tanya interrupted softly, rubbing her belly. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Her voice dripped with concern, but her eyes, they glittered with triumph. Something in me cracked, quiet but deep. I walked to the back, that tiny room smelling of detergent and damp wood. The floor creaked under my feet as I sat on an old crate, holding Frank's photo. "Frank," I whispered, "they locked me out of our life." The next days blurred together. Tanya avoided me, Michael grew distant, and the laughter from inside the house felt cruel. I tried to stay calm. Then one morning, while folding my clothes, I realized my jewelry box was gone. My heart dropped. When I asked, Michael said coldly, "We sold a few things for baby expenses, you'll understand." Understand, that word cut like glass. That night I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. Something inside me began to change. Grief turned to resolve. I might be old, but I wasn't helpless. I started watching, listening. Tanya whispered on phone calls, Michael kept hiding envelopes. I didn't know what they were up to yet, but I could feel the truth tightening around me like a noose. And when I finally pulled that truth free, it would change everything. What I found next didn't just break my heart, it set the first spark of the fire that would burn my whole world clean. That night I couldn't sleep. The walls around me felt alive, whispering the kind of secrets that crawl into your dreams and stay there. The hum of the washing machine next door sounded like a heartbeat, steady, mocking, reminding me I didn't belong in my own home anymore. For days, Michael and Tanya acted like I'd vanished. Tanya's laughter floated through the vents while I ate canned soup alone on a folding chair. Sometimes she'd slide leftovers under the door without saying a word. A piece of cornbread one night, half a sandwich the next. It was pity dressed as kindness. But I didn't break. I started writing things down, dates, times, the sound of car doors late at night, money missing from my account, 300 here, 500 there. I'd kept my old ledger from when Frank and I ran the hardware store, and I began a new one, not for business, for war. One morning I went into town pretending to buy groceries. I stopped by the bank first, wearing my best Sunday cardigan, the one that still smelled faintly of rosewater. The teller, sweet young thing with freckles, frowned when she saw my statement. "Mrs. Carter," she said carefully, Most of your savings have been withdrawn over the past 6 months. Large transfers, looks like online transactions. My throat went dry. That's impossible, I don't even know how to use that online thing. She hesitated. It says the account was accessed from your home address. My home, the words felt poisonous. I walked out into the Texas sun dizzy, clutching that paper like it was a death certificate. Frank had warned me years ago, never mix love and money without paper proof. I'd trusted Michael because he was my son. I'd handed him my bank details to help pay bills. I never thought he'd know they'd steal from me. When I came back, Tanya was on the porch, rocking in my chair, sipping lemonade. "You okay, Evelyn?" she asked, all soft concern. "Just tired," I said, my voice shook but I smiled. She smiled back, slow, knowing. That night I opened Frank's old lockbox from the shed. Inside were dusty documents, insurance papers, birth certificates, and one folded envelope labeled property deed. I unfolded it with trembling hands. The owner's name glared up at me. Evelyn Me Carter. Not Michael, not anyone else, just me. A strange calm washed over me. I wasn't powerless, not legally, not morally. For the first time in months I felt Frank beside me, his deep voice echoing in my mind. "You built this home, Evie. Don't let anyone take it from you." The next morning I called an old friend, Sam Peterson, Frank's lawyer buddy from church. When I told him everything, there was a pause. Then he said quietly, "You come see me tomorrow, and don't tell them a damn thing." That night as I sat on my cot, I could hear Tanya and Michael arguing through the walls. Money, lies, something about a car loan. Their voices rose and fell like thunder. I lay there clutching that deed and whispered to Frank, "They think they've beaten me, but they've just handed me my weapon." The crickets outside were singing loud and wild, as if the whole night knew what was coming. The next morning, I walked into that lawyer's office thinking I was about to reclaim my home. I had no idea I was about to uncover something far worse, something that would tear the last piece of my heart apart. The next morning I woke with a heaviness I hadn't felt in years, a pit deep in my chest that no cup of coffee could fix. I still smelled the faint traces of Tanya's perfume in the hallway, the kind that clung to every corner of the house, like a mark she was leaving on my life. I remembered how Michael had smiled at me once years ago, pretending to help me balance the checkbook. "Mom, I got this," he had said. I'd felt relief trusting him blindly. I didn't know then that the trust was a weapon in their hands. I went back to my tiny utility room, the walls closing in as the heat of the Texas sun poured through the small window. I opened Frank's old ledger and started comparing entries to my bank statements. At first the missing amounts seemed like mistakes. 300 here, 500 there. Then the numbers didn't add up, they multiplied. Over nearly 2 years my life savings had been drained. Nearly $40,000, gone, funneled into accounts I didn't even know existed. I felt sick. My hands shook as I held the statements. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. Every check Michael had written, every transfer Tanya had approved, had been a step in erasing me from my own life. And the worst part, they'd done it with my own consent, or at least my own naivety. Then came the photographs. I found an old shoebox in the back of the closet, one I hadn't opened in years. Inside were pictures of Frank and me, our wedding, our first home. There were snapshots of Michael as a boy, grinning, oblivious to my growing suspicion. But there were also pictures I didn't remember taking, Tanya posing with my silverware, my jewelry, even Frank's old watch. They had been cataloguing what they could steal before I noticed. I sank to the floor and hugged Frank's photograph, whispering to him as if he could answer. How did I miss all of this? How did I let them do this to me? The crickets outside started their evening song, loud against the quiet despair in my heart. I realized something terrifying. This had been happening slowly, quietly, over years. Not a sudden betrayal, but a creeping theft of my dignity and security. I forced myself to look deeper. In a drawer I found a folded envelope I hadn't opened since Frank's passing. Inside was the property deed, my name clear and unaltered. The house was still legally mine. Suddenly anger surged through the despair. They thought they could take everything because I had been too kind, too trusting. But the law was on my side. I stood up, packing the tiny room, feeling a spark of strength I hadn't felt in weeks. For the first time I saw a path forward. I would not just reclaim what was mine, I would make them accountable. As I stared out the small window, I noticed Tanya whispering on her phone, her laughter carrying in fragments through the wall. Something about a plan and keeping the house. My heart pounded. She wasn't just manipulating me, she was plotting. and I was ready to uncover every last piece. That night I sat with Frank's photograph, my hands tight around the edges. "They'll see soon enough, Frank," I whispered. "They'll see I'm not finished yet." But the deeper I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about money or property. It was about secrets so dark, even Michael hadn't fully realized how far Tanya would go. And when I uncovered the first one, it nearly shattered me completely. I remember the sun pouring through Sam Peterson's office windows, the dust motes dancing in the golden light. Leather chairs, the faint smell of pine cleaner, and the soft hum of the air conditioner. It was a little like stepping back into a safer time, before betrayal became my shadow. Sam looked at me, eyebrows knitted, as I handed him the stack of bank statements and my old ledger. "Sam, I think they've been stealing from me," I said, my voice barely steady. "Michael and Tanya, they've taken almost everything." He exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. "Evelyn, you're not wrong, but first sit down." I sank into the worn leather, heart hammering. "What do you mean?" "Legally, the house is still yours," he said, tapping the deed I had brought. "You never transferred ownership to Michael. He's never been on the deed. That's the good news. The bad news, they've been moving money around like pros. Some of it's in your joint account. Some is harder to trace." My stomach dropped. "They forged signatures." Sam nodded. "They've been systematic. Large withdrawals, small withdrawals, even a failed attempt to transfer the house into their names using falsified documents." I felt my chest tighten. I could hear Tanya's laughter from inside my own house in my mind. She had been planning this for years. And Michael, my own son, my hands shook. How could he betray me like this? "Evelyn," Sam said, his voice gentle but firm, "you have leverage, you own the house and you have proof of all these transactions. If you play this right, you can reclaim everything, financially, legally, emotionally. But you have to stay silent for now. Let them underestimate you." Silence wrapped around me like a cocoon. I wanted to scream, to run back and confront them, but Sam's words cooled the fire just enough to make me think. This wasn't about shouting or breaking plates. This was about strategy, about justice. That night back in my tiny utility room, I reviewed everything again. My hands moved almost mechanically as I organized statements, photos, and notes. I could hear Michael packing inside, Tanya's heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Their voices rose and fell in arguments I couldn't catch, but I caught fragments. "The deed, Mom's papers, we need a plan." My heart lurched. That's when I realized it. The pregnancy Tanya had announced might not be real. A flicker of suspicion sparked. If she was lying about something so huge, what else was she lying about? I sat on my cot, clutching Frank's photo close. "Frank, they think they've won," I whispered, "but they have no idea what I'm capable of." By the time midnight rolled in, I had made a silent promise to myself. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't just about the house. This was about reclaiming my dignity, my home, and my life, and I was willing to fight smarter, harder, and longer than they ever imagined. But nothing could have prepared me for what I overheard next. The conversation through the wall that revealed Tanya's darkest secret. A lie so cruel it would shake everything I thought I knew about my own family. I could still hear their voices through the thin walls of my tiny utility room. Tanya's voice was sharp, triumphant, a sound I would never forget. Michael's voice wavered, hesitant. Unsure, almost guilty. "She can't find out," Tanya whispered. "Not yet, the baby, it's not real, but she thinks it is." Time stopped. My hands tightened around Frank's photograph. Not real. My heart lurched and a sick twist of betrayal curled in my stomach. All those months of pretending, all the smiles, all the excuses, it had been a lie. A manipulative, calculated lie meant to control my son and take my home. I slumped against the wall, the Texas heat pressing down, sweat on my brow and tears I couldn't hold back anymore. I felt every single year I had lived, every sacrifice, every ounce of trust, compressed into that one cruel sentence. Michael's voice was shaky. "Tanya, I didn't know it was fake." "You should have seen it through," Tanya snapped. "Now we just need to wait. Mom's not going anywhere until she realizes she's powerless." I pressed my hands to my ears, choking back sobs, wishing Frank was there to hold me, to tell me it was going to be okay. But then anger started to bloom. Hot, fierce, unstoppable. They had underestimated me, thought I was fragile and alone. But I was. I had a house deed, proof of their lies, and the fire Frank had instilled in me all those years. The next day I went to Sam Peterson's office. I had made copies of everything, bank statements, notes, photographs. Sam frowned when he saw the look in my eyes. Evelyn, what did you hear? I told him everything, my voice shaking but steady with resolve. He nodded slowly. Then we have more than financial evidence. We have motive, manipulation, lies. This strengthens your case, but we need strategy, quiet, calculated, not confrontation. Yet. As I walked back home under the blazing Texas sun, I felt a shift. For the first time since Michael had locked me out, I felt in control. Not because they had left me alone, but because I could see clearly now. Every lie, every deceit, every act of betrayal, they were all documented in my hands, and they had no idea I knew. That night I moved silently through my own house, leaving no trace, listening. Tanya was on the phone again. Just make sure she doesn't see anything, I heard her say. I can't risk her finding out before it's too late. I smiled quietly to myself, a small victorious smile that Frank would have recognized. Too late, I whispered. It's only just beginning. I spent hours in that little utility room, reviewing every document, making a plan. I wasn't going to confront them with yelling or anger. That would be messy. I was going to win legally, morally, and emotionally. They had built a house of lies, but I had the foundation of truth. And as I closed my eyes that night, exhausted but energized, I whispered, Frank, I'm going to take it all back. They won't see it coming. But the next morning, what I discovered in Michael's study would push me to the edge, and force me to confront not only Tanya's lies, but the truth about my own son's complicity. The next morning I woke with a tight knot in my chest, the kind that tells you the day ahead will change everything. I hadn't slept well. My mind was spinning with Tanya's confession from the night before, a fake pregnancy. Every smile, every promise, every "Mom, trust me" had been a lie. I knew I couldn't confront them yet. I had to see how deep this went. I waited, listening, until Michael left the house. The moment the front door clicked shut, I slipped into the study he had claimed as his office. Stacks of papers, files, and folders sat untouched on the desk. I sifted through them slowly, my fingers trembling. That's when I saw it, a series of financial statements, receipts, even emails. Michael hadn't just gone along with Tanya's lies, he had actively helped her manipulate me. Unauthorized bank transfers, forged signatures, even letters pretending to be from me, giving permission for things I had never approved. I sank into the chair, the Texas sun spilling across the floor, warm and almost mocking. My own son, my boy, he had chosen lies over his mother. I closed my eyes and whispered to Frank's photo, I can't believe he'd do this, my own child. Anger bubbled up hot and fast, but I forced it down. I needed clarity. The truth, not fury, would be my weapon. I spent hours documenting everything, photocopies, notes, cross-references. Each piece of evidence became a brick in the wall I was going to build around my home, my life, my dignity. They thought they had me cornered, but in reality I had the upper hand. That evening Michael returned. He paused at the doorway, pretending to smile. Mom, can we talk? I stared at him, a calm mask over the storm inside me. Sure, I said, quiet, calculated. He started talking, trying to explain, fumbling over words. I didn't know, Tanya made me do. I raised a hand. Save it, I know everything. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. For the first time he understood that I was not the helpless mother he could manipulate anymore. Tanya appeared behind him, expecting her usual control, her fake sympathy. But I didn't flinch. I had truth on my side, and truth is sharper than any lie. That night I reviewed the property deed again, every document, every bank statement, every note I had made. I had proof, I had leverage, and more importantly, I had resolve. I wasn't just reclaiming a house, I was reclaiming my life, my voice, and the years of respect they had tried to steal. As I lay down that night, exhausted but alive with purpose, I whispered to Frank's photo, They'll see, Frank, they'll see what happens when you underestimate a mother who knows the truth. The wind rattled the small window of my utility room, as if echoing my determination. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. And then, the very next day, a letter slipped under the door would shake me to my core, a move by Tanya I hadn't expected, one that would force me to make a decision no mother ever wants to face. I woke that morning to the quiet hum of cicadas outside, the Texas heat pressing through the small window of my utility room. My hands were still sore from writing notes and copying statements the night before. I was tired, but my mind was sharper than ever. Today I felt the weight of something waiting for me, a presence I couldn't see but could sense. And then it came, A letter slid under the door, thin, crisp, with Tanya's handwriting curled across the front. My heart lurched. Slowly I picked it up, careful not to tear it, my fingers trembling. It read, "Evelyn, I know you know, but we have plans. Don't make this harder for yourself. You won't get what you think you will. T." A laugh escaped me, small and bitter, shaking like the wind through the trees outside. They really thought they could intimidate me with a piece of paper. I pressed Frank's photograph to my chest and whispered, "They have no idea, Frank. They have no idea what we're about to do." I knew I had to move carefully. One wrong step and they could erase everything. But I also knew that staying silent didn't mean being powerless. I began organizing the evidence: bank statements, receipts, photos, copies of the property deed, everything meticulously catalogued. Each document felt like a tiny victory. That afternoon I met Sam Peterson again. The smell of pine cleaner and the faint buzz of the ceiling fan greeted me like a shield of familiarity. I slid the letter across the desk. Sam read it, eyes narrowing. "They're trying to scare you," he said. "It's psychological warfare. But you," he leaned forward, voice firm, "you have the law, you have proof, and most importantly, you have patience. Don't let fear push you into a corner." I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. Fear, because I was up against people I loved once. Exhilaration, because I finally realized how strong I could be when backed by truth. That evening I crept back into the house under the pretense of needing supplies. From my small utility room, I could hear Tanya talking on the phone, her voice tight, laced with desperation I hadn't expected. "We need to cover everything before she finds out. She can't take the house." My pulse raced. Cover everything, that was the admission I needed. They had been manipulating, lying, forging, all in plain sight, and now they had exposed themselves. Sitting on the cot, I let out a long sigh, one that carried away months of tension. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was ready. I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't fight with words. I would reclaim what was mine with strategy, precision, and resolve. I whispered to Frank's photo as the Texas sun dipped below the horizon, painting the walls gold. "Frank, it's time. They forced my hand, and I will finish this, for us, for every moment they tried to steal." The next morning, Michael left for work, and Tanya was gone for the day. Alone in the house for the first time in months, I opened the safe I had ignored for decades, and inside was something I never expected. A secret that would not only change the battle for my home, but also reveal a truth about Tanya that would shock even my own son. The house was quiet, almost eerily so, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes every creak louder than it should be. Michael had gone to work, Tanya was out running errands, and for the first time in months I had the house entirely to myself. I approached the old safe in the corner of the study. Dust clung to its edges and the combination lock gleamed under the afternoon sun that filtered through the blinds. I hadn't opened it since Frank passed, and honestly I had avoided it. It was full of memories, some too heavy to touch. But today I knew I had to. With trembling hands I dialed the combination, the numbers clicking like the heartbeat in my chest. Inside, among old papers, I found envelopes labeled with Tanya's handwriting, but these were different, carefully documented receipts, letters, and even medical documents. And then my eyes widened. There it was, paperwork proving that Tanya's pregnancy was a complete fabrication. Fake sonograms, falsified doctor notes, a web of lies stretching further than I had imagined. My stomach churned. The betrayal was bigger than money, it was manipulation, psychological control, and deceit on a scale that made me ache. I sat on the floor clutching Frank's photograph, tears streaming down my cheeks. They thought they could break me, Frank. They really thought I'd just roll over. I realized something else too. Michael had known some of it. He hadn't been entirely innocent. Fear, love, or cowardice. He had allowed it to happen, silenced by Tanya's manipulation. My own son had been caught in the web, but I knew now I could reach him, if only I was careful. I began organizing everything meticulously, every document catalogued, scanned, and cross-referenced. The Texas heat pressed against my back through the window, cicadas buzzing like a frantic chorus, and yet I felt a strange calm. This was my plan, my house, my life, and now I had the ammunition. That night as I lay on the cot in the utility room, I whispered to Frank's photo, "They won't see it coming, Frank. Not the lies, not the manipulations. I have the truth now, and the truth is unstoppable." I could hear Tanya's voice faintly through the wall on a call. "We can't let her find out about this," she said. My heart leapt. She didn't know I already knew. They had underestimated me, thinking age and grief made me weak. But I wasn't weak. I had strategy, evidence, and a resolve hardened by months of betrayal. I would confront them not with anger, but with undeniable proof. I slept fitfully that night, dreaming of Frank's laugh, the smell of the old kitchen, and the long road ahead. I knew Tanya would try to cover her tracks and Michael might falter, but I was ready. For the first time the fear was gone, replaced by fierce determination. The next morning I made my first move, and when Michael saw me standing firm, evidence in hand, the shock on his face was nothing compared to what Tanya would feel when the truth came crashing down. The house was quiet, almost eerily so, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes every creak louder than it should be. Michael had gone to work, Tanya was out running errands, and for the first time in months I had the house entirely to myself. I approached the old safe in the corner of the study. Dust clung to its edges and the combination lock gleamed under the afternoon sun that filtered through the blinds. I hadn't opened it since Frank passed, and honestly I had avoided it. It was full of memories, some too heavy to touch. But today I knew I had to. With trembling hands I dialed the combination, the numbers clicking like the heartbeat in my chest. Inside, among old papers, I found envelopes labeled with Tanya's handwriting, but these were different, carefully documented receipts, letters, and even medical documents. And then my eyes widened. There it was, paperwork proving that Tanya's pregnancy was a complete fabrication. Fake sonograms, falsified doctor notes, a web of lies stretching further than I had imagined. My stomach churned. The betrayal was bigger than money, it was manipulation, psychological control, and deceit on a scale that made me ache. I sat on the floor clutching Frank's photograph, tears streaming down my cheeks. They thought they could break me, Frank. They really thought I'd just roll over. I realized something else too. Michael had known some of it. He hadn't been entirely innocent. Fear, love, or cowardice. He had allowed it to happen, silenced by Tanya's manipulation. My own son had been caught in the web, but I knew now I could reach him, if only I was careful. I began organizing everything meticulously, every document catalogued, scanned, and cross-referenced. The Texas heat pressed against my back through the window. Cicadas buzzing like a frantic chorus, and yet I felt a strange calm. This was my plan, my house, my life, and now I had the ammunition. That night as I lay on the cot in the utility room, I whispered to Frank's photo, "They won't see it coming, Frank. Not the lies, not the manipulations. I have the truth now, and the truth is unstoppable." I could hear Tanya's voice faintly through the wall on a call. "We can't let her find out about this," she said. My heart leapt. She didn't know I already knew. They had underestimated me, thinking age and grief made me weak. But I wasn't weak. I had strategy, evidence, and a resolve hardened by months of betrayal. I would confront them not with anger, but with undeniable proof. I slept fitfully that night, dreaming of Frank's laugh, the smell of the old kitchen, and the long road ahead. I knew Tanya would try to cover her tracks and Michael might falter, but I was ready. For the first time the fear was gone, replaced by fierce determination. The next morning I made my first move, and when Michael saw me standing firm, evidence in hand, the shock on his face was nothing compared to what Tanya would feel when the truth came crashing down. The sun was just rising over the Texas horizon, painting the walls of my utility room gold and orange. I could hear the faint clatter of breakfast in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of Michael fumbling with plates, Tanya humming, pretending everything was normal. I took a deep breath, holding Frank's photograph close. Today I wasn't hiding. Today I wasn't waiting. Today I was going to confront the truth and force them to see the power of it. I carried the envelopes and documents to the living room, laying them out on the coffee table. Bank statements, receipts, forged letters, fake medical records, everything neatly organized, each piece a nail in the coffin of their lies. Michael walked in first, coffee in hand, sleepy, unaware. His face froze the moment he saw the table. "Mom, what's all this?" he asked, voice shaking. I looked him straight in the eye, feeling the fire of months of betrayal rise. "This is everything, Michael. Every lie, every trick, every attempt to manipulate me." His hands trembled as he put down the coffee mug. "Mom, I did." "You didn't what?" I asked, voice rising with emotion I had held in for too long. "You helped her. You let her take everything I worked for. My money, my home, my dignity." Tanya appeared behind him, her usual confident smirk faltering slightly. "Evelyn, calm down. We can." "No," I snapped. "You're done pretending. Every lie, every fake smile, every mom, trust me, I know it all now." My voice cracked with anger and hurt, tears pricking my eyes. The pregnancy fake, the money stolen, and Michael, you were complicit. Michael's face crumpled. He looked like a boy caught in the wrong room, guilt and fear tangled together. Mom, I didn't know. You didn't know, or you didn't want to see, I whispered, the Texas wind rattling the blinds behind me. I trusted you, I raised you, and this is how you repay me. Tanya's smirk was gone. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. I spread the documents before them, each one a mirror reflecting their deceit back at them. This, I said, voice steady despite the quake in my chest, is proof. Every transaction, every forgery, every lie. You can't erase this, you can't hide it, and you can't take my home. For a long moment there was silence. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and my own heartbeat. Then Tanya's voice cracked, a tremor of fear creeping in. Evelyn, I didn't think you'd. I told you, I said softly, but firmly, never underestimate a mother who knows the truth. Michael sank into the sofa, burying his face in his hands. Tanya's phone buzzed insistently, but she ignored it, finally realizing she was trapped by her own lies. I stood there, chest heavy, yet lighter than I had felt in months. I wasn't just confronting them, I was reclaiming myself. My dignity, my home, my voice, all returned to me with each word I spoke. And as I looked out the window, the Texas sun spilling across the porch, I whispered to Frank's photo, "We're not done yet, old friend. But this is the start of real justice." Tomorrow I would make my first legal move, one that would shock Tanya, shake Michael, and set the course for a victory I had waited years to claim. And what I found in the lawyer's files would change everything. The morning sun burned gold over the Texas horizon, cutting through the blinds and painting stripes across the floor of my utility room. I had slept little, nerves buzzing like the cicadas outside. Today wasn't just another confrontation, it was the day I would take action, with Sam Peterson at my side, to hold Michael and Tanya fully accountable. I gathered every piece of evidence I had collected over the past weeks. Bank statements, forged signatures, the fake sonograms, letters, photos, each one meticulously catalogued. My hands shook slightly, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation, the kind that comes when justice finally feels possible. Sam arrived just after 9, briefcase in hand, the smell of pine cleaner and coffee clinging faintly to his coat. "Evelyn," he said, his eyes sharp, "you're ready. Are you sure you want to file today?" I looked at him, steady and determined. I've waited long enough. They need to see that lies have consequences, that betrayal isn't free. We drove to the courthouse in silence, the Texas heat pressing against the car windows. Every stoplight felt like a drumbeat, my heart racing in time. I thought of Frank, of his laugh, of the life we built together, and I whispered, "This is for us, old friend." Inside the courthouse, the smell of polished wood and legal paper wrapped around me, grounding me in purpose. Sam guided me to the clerk's desk, and I signed the forms to begin legal action. Financial restitution, formal acknowledgement of the house deed, and exposure of Tanya's fraudulent activities, everything I had painstakingly documented, was now officially in motion. When Michael and Tanya were served, their faces told a story I could hardly believe. Shock, guilt, panic, all flickering across expressions that had once fooled me into thinking they cared. Tanya's eyes widened, her confident mask cracking. Michael's jaw tightened. He looked smaller than he had in years, as if the weight of his choices had finally pressed down on him. I watched quietly, heart pounding, as the clerk handed them the documents. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The law, backed by truth and evidence, had already done my work. Later that evening, back in my utility room, I reviewed the legal timelines with Sam. "They'll try to fight," he warned, "but with this evidence we have a strong case. They won't be able to manipulate the court, or you." I nodded, feeling a surge of pride and relief. This wasn't just about the house or the money, it was about reclaiming my life. The small Texas house I had built with Frank's hands and love was mine again, and now the law recognized that fact. I looked out the window as the sun dipped low, painting the room in warm amber light. Michael was silent, Tanya seething somewhere in the house, and I felt free. Not fully yet, but the first waves of real justice were rolling in. And as I pressed Frank's photograph to my chest, I whispered, "We're just getting started, Frank. They'll pay for every lie, and they'll know that a mother's strength is not something you can break." But even as the legal storm began to rage, a new revelation emerged, a hidden twist in Tanya's plan that could undo everything if I wasn't careful. Tomorrow I would uncover it, and the truth would hit harder than anything before. The sun hadn't even fully risen, but the Texas heat was already pressing against the windows. My utility room felt smaller than ever, cramped with anticipation and the weight of everything I'd uncovered. Sam had warned me Tanya wasn't finished. She would try something, one last desperate move before everything crumbled. I spent the early morning going over documents again, tracing signatures, checking bank transfers, and organizing evidence. Every detail mattered. Every misstep on her part could be fatal to my case. My heart thumped as I imagined her scheming somewhere in the house, thinking she could outsmart me again. Then my phone buzzed with a message I wasn't expecting. A photo of the mailbox with an envelope marked urgent and Tanya's handwriting sprawled across the front. My hands trembled, half in anger, half in anticipation. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I whispered to Frank's photo, "Whatever it is, Frank, we handle it carefully." I finally tore open the envelope. Inside were falsified documents attempting to transfer additional property, my father's old land in the outskirts of Austin, into Tanya and Michael's names. She had tried to act fast, thinking the court hadn't fully reviewed my filings. My stomach lurched. Her audacity was infuriating. But I wasn't panicking. I had expected this. I took a deep breath, letting the Texas wind from the small window brush across my face, and felt a calm settle. I would not be tricked. Not now, not ever. I drove to Sam's office immediately, documents in hand. "Look at this," I said, slamming the papers on his desk. His eyes scanned the documents, narrowing with concern. "This is brazen," he muttered. "But you've already got a case in progress. The court will see this as additional evidence of fraud. This actually strengthens your position, Evelyn." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and fury. The audacity of her schemes made my blood boil, but I knew she had inadvertently sealed her fate. Every desperate move, every falsified signature, every lie, now meticulously documented, was ammunition for the final showdown. Back at the house, I waited, letting them stew. Tanya came home later, striding in with her usual confidence, but I noticed the tremor in her hands, the flicker of panic in her eyes. Michael followed behind her, hesitant and subdued. For the first time, I felt the upper hand fully in my grip. "I know everything," I said, my voice calm but firm, holding up the envelope. "Your lies, your attempts to steal more property, your manipulation, it ends here." Tanya's face twisted, and for a fleeting moment I almost felt pity. Almost. But then she spoke, her voice a sharp whine. You can't." I shook my head, a small, triumphant smile tugging at my lips. "I already have. The law is on my side, and I've collected every single piece of your deceit. You underestimated me for far too long." Michael looked down, ashamed, while Tanya realized her plans were collapsing like sand through fingers. I could almost hear Frank's quiet chuckle in my mind, proud of the strength I had found. I sank into the chair in the utility room later that evening, exhausted, heart pounding, yet lighter than I had felt in years. Justice was close, and dignity, long stolen, was finally returning. Tomorrow, the final confrontation would begin, the legal filings, the exposure of Tanya's crimes, and the moment Michael and Tanya would finally face the consequences of their actions. And what I discovered hidden in the courthouse files would shock even me. The courthouse steps were scorching under the Texas sun, but I didn't feel the heat. My hands gripped the railing, my heart thumping, and I clutched Frank's photograph in my bag like a talisman. Today wasn't just a day in court, it was the day I reclaimed everything they tried to steal. I entered the courtroom, the smell of polished wood and legal paper hitting me like a wave. The air was thick with anticipation. Michael sat stiffly beside Tanya, looking smaller than ever. Her confident demeanor had vanished, replaced by a mask of desperation. Sam leaned over, whispering, "Stay calm, speak your truth, the evidence will do the rest." I nodded, taking a deep breath. My legs felt heavy, but my resolve was steel. I stepped forward when the judge called the session to order. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady, though a knot of emotion tightened in my throat. "I am here because my own family betrayed me. They manipulated me, stole my money, falsified documents, and tried to take my home. I am not just fighting for property, I am fighting for justice, for dignity, and for the truth." The room was silent. I could hear Tanya's shallow breaths, Michael shifting uncomfortably, and the faint buzz of the ceiling fan. I laid out the evidence one by one, bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals, the forged letters, the fake medical documents, and the attempts to seize additional property. Each piece was a hammer, each fact a nail in the wall of truth. The judge's eyes were focused, unwavering. "Ms. Harper," he said, addressing me formally, "this is a comprehensive case. You have documented every allegation thoroughly. I swallowed hard, remembering Frank's voice in my head. Stay calm, Evelyn. Truth is your weapon. Michael tried to speak, stammering apologies, but I shook my head. No, Michael, it's not about apologies. It's about accountability. You had a choice to protect me, to be honest, and you chose otherwise. Tanya's lips trembled. Your Honor, she's exaggerating. I held up the folder of evidence. Exaggerating, this is fact. Every signature, every transaction, every falsified document is here. This isn't a story, this is reality, and I will not be silenced. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The air was electric, a mixture of fear and awe. Michael looked at me, eyes wide, guilt washing over him like a tide. Tanya's face paled, the truth of her actions finally crushing her confident front. As I spoke, I felt a release, a lift in my chest. This was more than reclaiming a house. This was reclaiming my voice, my dignity, and years of stolen respect. Every tear I had shed, every heartbreak, every sleepless night, it all led to this moment. The judge nodded, reviewing the documents. Ms. Harper, your evidence is compelling. This court will move to protect your rights and address the fraudulent actions taken against you. I exhaled slowly, the weight on my chest easing slightly. Justice was underway. But just as I thought the battle was turning in my favor, an unexpected twist emerged, a revelation in the courtroom files that would change everything, forcing Tanya to make a desperate, last-ditch move that could either destroy her or backfire spectacularly. The courtroom was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound like thunder in your ears. I sat in the witness chair, hands gripping Frank's photo, as the judge reviewed the evidence one final time. The tension in the room was thick, so thick it felt like I could cut it with a knife. Michael's eyes were downcast, ashamed, and Tanya's confident mask had crumbled completely. Her lips trembled, her hands fidgeted with her notes, and for the first time I saw fear, pure, unfiltered fear. Ms. Harper, the judge said, looking at me with a kind but firm gaze, based on the evidence presented and the documentation verified by the court, the property known as your home in Austin, Texas, remains legally yours. Furthermore, restitution for unauthorized financial transactions and falsified documents is to be enforced immediately. A gasp escaped me, small and shaky, tears prickling my eyes. I could hardly believe it. After months of betrayal, manipulation, and emotional torment, justice had finally arrived. I glanced at Michael. His eyes were wet, shame and regret battling across his face. "Mom," he whispered, voice breaking. I shook my head softly. "Michael, words aren't enough anymore. Actions, honesty, and respect are what matter. You'll have to earn your way back, not just to the house, but to trust." Tanya's knees almost buckled, and she sank slightly in her seat. Her schemes, her lies, every desperate attempt to take what wasn't hers, it had all been undone by truth and determination. I felt a small, victorious smile tug at my lips. Sam Peterson came over later, his voice low but warm. "Evelyn, you've done it. Justice isn't just about the law, it's about reclaiming your life, and today you've done both." I pressed Frank's photo to my chest, whispering, "We did it, old friend. We did it together." The weight of months of stress, fear, and heartbreak seemed to lift from my shoulders, leaving a strange mixture of relief and pride. That night back in my home, I walked through each room slowly. Everything felt different, clean, calm, and fully mine again. The smell of the old wood, the Texas breeze through open windows, even the hum of the cicadas outside, it all felt like a welcome home I hadn't realized I'd been waiting for. I finally allowed myself to sit in the living room, tears freely flowing, a sigh of release escaping me. Michael came over cautiously, hands folded. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder, firm but gentle. "I forgive you, Michael, but remember, trust isn't given lightly. It's earned, and right now our family starts rebuilding from truth and respect." Tanya was escorted out of the courthouse shortly after, facing charges for fraud. I didn't watch her go. I didn't need to. Justice had been served, and her reign over my life was officially over. Sitting on the porch that evening, the Texas sun dipping low, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace, strength, and a fierce, unshakable sense of dignity. Frank's memory filled the space with warmth, and I whispered, "We did it, Frank, we reclaimed everything, and nothing can take this away from us." My story isn't just about reclaiming a house. It's about standing up when you're underestimated, fighting for dignity, and proving that no matter your age, your strength, your truth, and your courage can triumph over betrayal. And if you've ever felt powerless, remember it's never too late to take back your life.